Broadcasting from the basement of La Penta, this is WICR.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. Jersey Joe, Big Shot Rob, and Antonio Copley here today on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, 1-800-888-ESPN. So the phone lines are opened up, guys. Big news coming off the wire as we speak. Andrew Luck, it is not good news for the Indianapolis Colts or him. Out 2 to 6 weeks with a lacerated kidney and an abdominal tear. Coming off their biggest win of the season, it's really been a season of uncertainty for the Colts so far. Now you look at this with Luck. Here's what I'll ask you guys first. There were more reports before this that he was hurt, and obviously he missed some games because of it. Is this just kind of this whole season defined by injuries for Andrew Luck so far?
Oh, most definitely, and it's been defined a lot, too, by the Colts just covering everything up. This guy's been playing hurt, Joe, the whole year. He was just getting pounded. Those first two games, especially versus New York Jets, can sack so many times, and it's hard to see this for Andrew Luck, such a great young quarterback, but the injuries have just been a killer defining his season.
It's kind of, I just want to say it's kind of been like a microcosm of the whole Colts season. I mean, without Andrew Luck, this team is nothing. We see how depleted the roster is. They've had to resort to firing their offensive coordinator, Pep Hamilton, which I think that was kind of like a scapegoat kind of move. I don't think you could blame much on him. I mean, the whole coaching staff is having issues, not just him. I mean,
they need an overhaul.
Exactly. Chuck Pagano has been rumored to be on his way out since the offseason. So, it's just problems all around for the Colts roster, coaching, management, all the way around. And this is kind of the icing on the cake for the Colts.
I think you guys are both spot on with it. And I don't think that there's another player in the league that if you take off a roster that the team is worse than when you take Luck off of the Colts roster. I really think that might be you take Luck off that roster, which we will for the next 2 to 6 weeks maybe. I think they have the worst roster in the NFL.
Oh, they most definitely do. And now you have to rely. First off, you're in first place right now with the Colts. Now you have Matt Hasselbeck taking over. I mean, he's a decent quarterback, but he's up there in age. And if you don't win these next couple games, they could easily lose it to the Texans or Titans. The Titans could easily run right into this because Marcus Mariota, the way he came back on Sunday and beat the New Orleans Saints, we might be seeing great games coming out of him. So this might be the killer and the climax to the Colts season.
Well, I'll tell you what, that really meant a lot. I think the poise that Marcus Mariota showed coming off and beating the Saints, his head coach had been fired, he had been injured, he hadn't played a while. Just the poise and composure that he played with there, that really was a defining moment. I mean, I think that really kind of tells you all you really need to know about Marcus Mariota, the preparation that he puts in. The guy's a pro, and you got to give credit to Jameis Winston, too, because, look, before the season, I was very critical. I didn't think Jameis was really going to have what it took to cut it as a pro. But Jameis can play. I mean, both of these guys are going to be really big players in this league for a long time.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you saw Jameis with a huge win a couple weeks ago in Atlanta. Kind of a sloppy game against the Giants last week. But I also want to mention Jacksonville in this division because they put up a good fight against the Jets. Another sloppy game, full of turnovers. But what stood out to me about the Jaguars is that this team is so young, Joe. Quarterback position, wide receiver position, running back position, all these guys are in their second year. They remind me a lot of the Raiders, who are also another team on the come up. But in terms of this division, I think it's wide open. I mean, if the Colts don't, make moves in a hurry this next offseason in the draft, they're going to see this division become very difficult between whether it's the Titans, the Jaguars. I mean, the Texans have their problems too, but the Colts, I mean, this was really their year to, propel themselves and really move forward in the postseason, and they didn't really show up to the task.
No, I completely agree. And here's the thing: if you stack the Colts roster up against the Texans and the Jaguars, they have better rosters.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts just have the transcendent quarterback that comes around every 15 years. But I think it's a spot on, and that window is very interesting because if you look at the Colts roster today, it's no better than it was the year they drafted Andrew Luck. And that's an indictment on the front office. I think they have to just clean house everywhere. Head coaching staff, front office, it all has to go. Blow it all up because you can't waste any time. Marcus Mariota, I think what we saw on Sunday is a defining moment of what we're going to get from him. The Jaguars have a roster full of very young talent, and it's coming together more and more. And then the Texans have a lot of talent on their roster. They're still looking for their quarterback. But look ahead for the Colts schedule a little bit here. Falcons, Bucks, Steelers, the next 3 games. They're at Atlanta, and they're at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got issues of their own with Ben Roethlisberger's health. But, I mean, man, Hasselbeck did his job and really held down the fort when he had to. But it's a little different. I mean, at the Falcons, the Buccaneers have played really well at times this year, and then Pittsburgh. That could be 0-3 really easily right there.
Oh, it can. I see them winning at least one game. I see them possibly beating Pittsburgh. I think they could beat them, but I mean, the Bucks, that's going to be a tough challenge. Jameis Winston has been playing great down the stretch, hasn't been making turnovers, has been throwing the ball perfectly. He's throwing touchdowns. I mean, the other day versus the Giants had no touchdowns, but he was very accurate, throwing for 249 yards. And if Mike Evans didn't have so many drops, they might have won that game versus the New York Giants. But I mean, another questionable game on that schedule, you have Colts and the Falcons. The Falcons lose to the 49ers, playing against Blaine Gabbert. And that's kind of a disgrace, first of all. If you lose to the 49ers, they don't have a starting quarterback. They don't have a running game. That's just disgraceful out there.
Tremendously awful, Rob.
So the Colts could either win 1 or 2 games on this next 3-game stretch.
Okay. Antonio, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. Matt Hasselbeck has stepped in already, and he's gone undefeated. So, I mean, he's got that veteran experience. He's a leader. But what worries me, I mean, you talked about it, Joe. This roster has not improved. They have 0 playmakers aside from T.Y. Hilton. Who do they have? Andre Johnson's washed up. Frank Gore it looks lost. They just signed Ahmad Bradshaw off the streets, and I mean, the offensive line has been an issue for years. So, I mean, looking ahead, Matt Hasselbeck, yeah, he's a veteran, he's a leader. But I think he can win a game or two, but the Colts season is very much in jeopardy right now, and it's going to be interesting to see who takes this division, quite honestly, because it could be Marcus Mariota if he can go on a run. The Jaguars are not finished, but, I mean, the Colts are just a complete disaster right now.
There is no question about it. Now, I want to move forward a little bit here because I've got 2 pretty big Jet fans sitting right in the corner over there. You get the win against the Jaguars. Thursday Night Football is coming up. You're playing the Bills. How are you feeling?
We're going to win. We're going to the playoffs this year, Jersey Joe.
Whoa,
we are going to the playoffs, and we're winning 11 games. That's how I feel. I mean, yes, the Jets on Sunday, me and Antonio can admit, the defense was atrocious, but we're playing banged up. First off, our offensive line is really banged up at this time. Nick Mangold and Willie Colon are playing through injury. Chris Ivory, who sustained an injury versus the Patriots a couple weeks ago, I think is still playing through it because the guy is no longer explosive, no longer getting the cuts. And one thing is, when your offensive line is hurting and they're not as strong, you're not going to develop and get down the field. And I think that's been one killer for them. But otherwise, we look defensively. Antonio Cromartie has just been atrocious. The guy has been getting blown down the field. And we saw it versus Jacksonville. They scored a touchdown right before the end of the first half. And, I mean, if he doesn't start getting his head right on track, this Jets team could have some problems on their defensive side.
Well, Rob, I agree with you. The Jets are going to go to the playoffs. I mean, I said at the beginning of the year, I know this is kind of a silly stat to go back on, but the past 3 or 4 Jets head coaches, whether it be Herm Edwards, Mangini, Rex Ryan, they've all gone to the playoffs in their first year. They've seen success stepping into a head coaching role here in New York with the Jets. But the 2 injuries that stand out to me, you mentioned the offensive line. Nick Mangold is by far the MVP of this team. Without him, it's a completely different team. You saw Freeman step in to play center, and you said Chris Ivory looks lost. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but he just looks lost. As soon as he gets the ball handed off to him, he's he's hesitating behind the line of scrimmage, which I've never seen him do. Usually it's just full speed right through the hole.
And he usually has 6 guys on him.
Yeah, exactly. And he's able to break tackles. He was leading the league for quite a while in yards after contact, and we haven't seen that at all. If anything, he's losing yards after contact. And then the other injury I wanted to talk about was on the defensive side of the ball, Calvin Pryor, only a second-year player. Had an up-and-down year last year under Rex Ryan. He was kind of not playing in his natural position of strong safety. He was kind of playing more in the back end of the secondary. But this year, he's emerged as a leader on this team, and he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's, again, not going to play this week, which, by the way, Nick Mangold will play this week, and that's a huge boost for the Jets. This just coming out today. He practiced. He tweaked that neck in the game on Sunday, and he had to come out. But he will play this week on Thursday. But going back to Pryor, the secondary, you mentioned Cromartie, it's a disaster right now. I mean, it's not as bad as last year, obviously. I mean, Revis doesn't look like Revis from years ago, but Cromartie, you mentioned, is awful. Marcus Williams, who was on the practice squad last year, is leading the team in interceptions. So, I mean, the Jets, this will be a good test against Buffalo on Thursday.
And then one thing we keep talking about the defense. I'm at the game Sunday, and the Jets score. They're up 28-16 at the time.
Weren't you asked to leave the stadium?
I was about to leave.
Oh, okay.
I'm heading down, and I mean, we're watching the screen. All of a sudden, Jacksonville's down the field, 45 seconds, touchdown, 28-23, and we got two minutes and like 30 seconds left in the game.
That's our secondary.
And
right there.
I mean, the defense has to stay stable. Me and Antonio, we talk about it all the time. When the Jets play the Patriots, we came out hot off the back in that game. Tom Brady couldn't do anything. And after that, later on in the game, slowly developed, got down the field, attacked, Rob Gronkowski with the easy touchdown. And since that game, the Jets' defense has just gone downhill. We were on the uprise at the start of the year, but since then, just completely downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Has not been the same Jets defense we've seen from week one, just who were attacking everybody.
And you mentioned that play with Gronkowski. I remember where he was wide open there in the fourth quarter against it. That kind of put the game away. That was actually right after Pryor got hurt, because Pryor was doing a nice job. Him and Marcus Gilchrist taking care of Gronkowski. I mean, obviously you can't shut the guy down, but he's not going to score a wide open touchdown when you have a healthy secondary. But no, I agree. I mean, I think Todd Bowles is also learning, on the fly. I mean, one sequence that stood out to me was I think that there's 2 minutes and change left in the first half. This was like 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the first half. The Jaguars had just kicked a field goal. The Jets get the ball on the 20, I believe, and they run 3 running plays. They get like 4 or 5 yards, and they punt the ball to Jacksonville. They go down the field. Cromartie bites on a double fake or whatever you call it. And the guy Robinson runs right by him for a touchdown, and that's to end the first half. You can't go into halftime giving up a touchdown, 80-yard drive, 70-yard drive, whatever it was, and then Jacksonville got the ball after. It just didn't make sense. I mean, Todd Bowles, very questionable decisions, maybe a little bit too conservative to complement the style of defense he wants to play. But again, I mean, it's a lot to ask for certain guys to come in and step up. I mean, the Jets are down to practice squad players at safety right now. Rontez Miles, who they just signed on Saturday, had to step in to the game a day later to play because of the injury to Deion Bailey, who they picked up off of waivers, who was cut by Seattle, when he stepped in for Cam Chancellor. So, I mean, it's just kind of, a merry-go-round of players in the Jets secondary right now. The only really stable force has been Revis. You mentioned Buster Screen's been playing through injury. Cromartie's now not going to play on Thursday, so we'll see. I mean, again, I said before, this is a big test for the Jets. I mean, Rex Ryan, we're going to talk about, I'm sure, what he's doing with this whole Geno Smith, and Capali story. But I mean, Rex Ryan, he hates the Jets. I mean, he's going to come into this building, he's going to want to, punch him in the face. And we'll see. I mean, if the Jets can withstand Rex Ryan, then I think they're going to fare well for the rest of the year.
Man, give Antonio a break. It's like an encyclopedia on the New York Jets.
I'm trying to put it all together, but I mean.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about why and how Rob got kicked out of MetLife Stadium, why he's never allowed to return back there. So stay with us, and we will be right back.